Okay. New location because my kids are all out of the house. Crazy. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, you have no idea where I am. You were just hearing my voice. So, welcome to episode 4 of Inclusion Starts Now. Kayla Talks Inclusion, whatever we're going to call it. I don't know. Season 1 is just going to be an entirely like pilot season. Why I decided to start it right now, not sure, because March is kind of an insane. I'm about to, next week, I have 3 presentations all about totally different topics. Um, so if you're interested in any of those, I don't know, let me know. I will be posting all about it on social media. But today, I know I keep saying I'm going to talk about religion, but I really feel like I need to get all of my thoughts really cleared up before I talk about it on a podcast and have people like comment on things. Because, yeah, this is also on YouTube, and YouTubers are not very nice. Not the YouTubers, people who comment on YouTube. But here we are. However, you're listening, love that you're here. I thought today I was going to talk about the book that I want to write for adults called Raise Inclusive Kids. Now, the reason why I'm kind of focusing on this is because as a teacher, so I was a teacher before I had kids, and I was in a special education classroom all the years I was teaching. No matter how inclusive the schools were, our home spot was a special education classroom that, struggling to get curriculum, struggling to find assessments, like adaptive assessments, and constantly having to educate other students about disabilities, which I am going to do a story. Actually, you know what? F it. Let's just do it now. So when I was a one-on-one para, I was working with a student who was deafblind, well, still is deafblind, and he had some like different facial features. He had some like physical disabilities too. He used a walker to get around at this time. His eyes are like a little bit slanted. His mouth kind of hangs open. Yeah, like his fingers and toes kind of like they didn't really match the way that the hands and toes usually match. Like, though, I don't know how else to explain this. He had some physical disabilities that were noticeable. And so I had another student, and this was like, I don't know, a first grader who came up to me and said, so why does he look like an alien? And I just was like, I was taken aback, clutching my pearls. I was like, oh my gosh, like, do not say that. That is not kind. And I just like really, I shut it down, and I got kind of mad at this kid. And I don't think he didn't seem that affected by it. He was just like, okay, and like walked away. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I hope my student's okay. I hope he wasn't offended by that comment. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that student was trying to ask a question. They're in first grade. They probably haven't seen a lot of disabled people. And I did not give a safe space for this student. And, did I just like ruin? Of course, I spiraled out of control. I was like, did this student just think like I should never ask a question if I don't understand something? Like, oh my gosh. I kicked myself maybe a little too hard on how I responded to that student, because if I could do that over again, I would have definitely said, oh, are you saying that he looks different? Like, he does look different. What makes him different? What makes you different? What do we have that's the same? Oh, you guys both have kind of like dirty blonde hair. How fun. Like, do you like to dance? My student loves to dance. Like, I could have had a whole conversation and even said like, oh yeah, this student has a disability. He's deaf and blind. That means he can't see or hear the same as you, but he uses sign language. Like, it could have been such a great learning experience. And I messed up. I messed up because instead of me giving this child a safe space to ask questions, I got mad. And that's just something I will learn from forever. And that is probably a huge, you know what? That I think you guys just heard like the new intro to this book. Or maybe the first chapter. I think first chapter. It's still in very, very big draft stage. It's in we're in a drafting stage. But so that moment was a very big moment to me that I was like, okay, people don't know about disabilities. I went to school focusing on disabilities. I learned about a bunch of different disabilities. My teaching credential is extensive support needs, which used to be called moderate severe. I work with the population of students that have an even harder time being included in their community. And for some reason, I was drawn to this population. And I think part of it was because people don't know and people don't seem to care to be educated in within this population. And so I just, so what I'm trying to say is for the people who are educated in the disabled within the disabled community who might identify as a disabled person. I know it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to be battling against this ableist community, world, laws. It sucks. And it's hard not to just be so angry. But a lot of non disabled people that are going to be asking questions that might sound pretty rude are the people that like want to know. And I need to remember to, take a breath and answer the question as best as I can and just talk about, differences, talk about disability. As we say, disability is not a bad word, and it's true. The people with disabilities are going to need different accommodations, are going to need different kinds of support in the classroom or at recess or whatever, and that's fine. And if anything has showed us, a lot of these accommodations can be beneficial for more people than just the disabled person that it's been like made for. For example, curbs used to not have the slants, the little driveways for, like crossing the street. And so it was like people who were using wheelchairs were like, this would be such an easy fix, that, beneficial, whatever. Started putting it in, mothers with strollers were like, this is great. People moving big boxes with their little trolley carts got to use the slanted curbs or whatever, driveways, I don't know what to call them. And it was great. So it's like we don't always, we're always going to be changing. This week I posted something. I just watched Poor Things, phenomenal movie. Emma Stone totally dominated. Definitely that Oscar was so, I mean, I didn't watch the Oscars, but I know that she won, and great. I'm very happy she did because that was a phenomenal performance. So yeah, so she said something in one of her quotes was like, well, it's just the way it is until we figure out a new way it is. And then that's the way it is until we figure out a new way that it is. And then that's the way it is. We're constantly learning. We don't want things to stay the same because then we're not learning and growing. That's like the whole point. So I now digress. And this is why I feel like now becoming a parent and not being in the classroom anymore, even though I still feel like I have so much information to give to educators and parents who are having to fight the system and deal with all the ableism views out there, I also feel like how I've been parenting my kids has changed from what I thought it was going to be because my whole schooling is child development. And so I I knew all these ways that I wanted to parent my kids. And I ran my classroom in a certain way. And I know people who were in my classroom are not going to say that I was a strict teacher, but I did have very specific expectations and boundaries and things that, if you didn't do this, you don't get this. Like, because it's a classroom, we got to do work. Like, I don't think anything was unfair. But I do feel like as a parent, it's different. It's different. I want my kids in the house to feel like this is their house. I want them to have a say in like, where do things go? How do we pick things up? We all help with chores. Like house chores is just something for everyone to do, and you don't get rewarded or anything for like helping me unload the dishwasher. And that was kind of stuff that I didn't really think about when I was wanting to have kids compared to having kids. And now, oh, and then like educating them on people who are different than us. I'm a white person. I married a white man. We are cisgender, non disabled white people. And our two children are white and non disabled as of now. And the four of us are, there's not a lot of diversity, and my husband and I get mistaken for siblings sometimes, which is very annoying, but that's what happens. But because of that, I know that we need to make the extra effort to educate our children that there are different skin colors than us. There are different cultural backgrounds. There are different holidays that we might not celebrate, but other people will celebrate. There are people with disabilities that are going to communicate differently and play differently. And it's important that we understand that everyone has these beautiful things that make us different, but we can all still play together and learn to help each other out and be a part of this community that we're a part of. So that is what has kind of inspired me to write this book. I feel like so much background on child development has been really helpful for me as a parent. And I joke a lot that I feel, I say this as a joke, but it is real. I feel like every person who wants to have a child should take like at least one child development class. I feel like it is so important to know how a child's brain works because, like, we forget we're adults. We don't remember what it was like being one, two, three, four, five. Like, it's and I feel like a lot of my patience comes from me understanding where they are in their brain development. And I just feel like it's so important that people who have kids learn about that so they can be a better parent. Not that you're not being a better parent. Oh, yeah. So that's the book. And then going back to how we can talk about disabilities, especially in a school setting. Actually, let's give you some tips on both. First, school setting. As the special education teacher, I love to do ability awareness activities. And this was something, because I was in a segregated classroom, I scheduled time where I would go into the general education classrooms and do an ability awareness activity. And so my favorite one, especially as an elementary school teacher, is I would come in and also, when you pick an ability awareness activity, you have to make it make sense for your population. So I was in a classroom that had all autistic students. Some of them were speaking, some of them were non-speaking, some of them had AAC devices, some of them stimmed, some of them did not. Like, it was a pretty wide range. So I went into the classrooms and I would have everyone turn off their voices and I would have them communicate different things to me, like that they're hungry, they're cold. And then the last one would be that someone took your ball and you want it back. That was the one that would usually get a student to get really mad. Someone would sometimes pretend to hit, or, stomp, look all angry, walk away. And so then I kind of related that back to my students of saying, sometimes they might seem mad, and that could be a great time for you to step back and think, did I just take this ball from them? Did they trip and fall? Like, what kind of thing happened that we can try to like see other ways of communication of like why they might be mad or why they might be feeling the way that they're feeling. And then we would talk about how some of my students don't speak and they might use AAC devices or sign language or behaviors to communicate. So how can we still play with each other and be, include everybody when they aren't speaking the way that you're speaking? And this was just a great conversation to have. And then this was also a time I gave a designated safe space for them to ask questions however they wanted. This was also a time that my students were not in the room with them because I wanted them to feel comfortable to ask any question. And I would even make a statement of like, even if you feel like it's going to sound mean, just say the question and I will tell you, and like if there's a kinder way to ask. because kids literally just don't know. They're learning and it's so fun. They're just little sponges and they want to know everything. So doing ability awareness activities is so good. And if you're a parent and if you're a parent of a child with a disability, you can come in with books that have representation of them. You can come in and share things that your kid likes. You're the expert on your child. I know you have an IEP team. They are experts in their field. You are experts on your child. And that is so important to be that resource for schools so they know how to best support your child. And then for parents who don't have children with disabilities, educate them, educate yourself. The disability population, right now, it is about 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people identify as having a disability. And it can be, pregnancy. Pregnancy is a disability. Or it can be, you got older and you're using a wheelchair or a cane. Like, there are so many other disabilities, and disability is not bad. It just means that you need some sort of accommodation to get access to what you want to get access to. So, not a bad word, and it's not a bad thing. If your child has a disability, if you have a disability, just be proud that you have figured out that you need more support with something. That's fine. We all need more support in just different ways. Okay. I feel like I just went off topic again. Disability is fine. Oh, parents of children without disabilities. So what we do at home a lot. I love reading. Shocker. Former teacher, of course, and I love reading personally just myself. So I'm always reading books, and I try very hard to read books in front of my kids, especially when they're playing by themselves. I don't want them just seeing me scrolling on my phone all the time. So I love to read books. And when my kids, especially when they're like acting out, and if they're like fighting, they can't seem to figure out how to play a game. If I've been trying to help them play a game and that's just not working, I will eventually be like, okay, we're reading a book. Who wants to pick out the first book? And I have a lot of books with disability representation. I've also written 3 books with disability representation and examples of how to be inclusive. So if you need that, I'm sure I will link it in wherever you're listening to this. But it is so important to just have that available. Have TV shows with kids with disabilities in it. We need representation so our children can see that it's normal to be different. I don't usually like to use the word normal, but I'm going to use it here. Normalize that we're all different. It would be boring if we were all the same. So yes, have representation in the household. Get books. You could even go to the library. Public libraries have so many books. You want to save money? Go do that. TV shows. We got Daniel Tiger has representation. Sesame Street has representation. I know Llama Llama has some representation. I'm not the biggest Llama Llama fan with the whole behaviors, but that's a whole nother thing. We can talk about behaviors later because that's one of my presentations. It's all about aggressive behaviors, and I'm sure I'll talk about that here eventually. Okay, so that is that. Talking about me writing this book is really the only way that I can hold myself accountable for it. My goal was to have like a draft of the entire book by the end of this year. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go the self-publishing route again or if I'm going to try to get people to help me put out this book. I really don't want to pay a lot of money to have someone else just like market it for me because that just seems, we ain't rolling in it. So that is that. Thank you so much for being here. I need to think of some sort of like sign on and sign off thing. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But thanks for joining me not on my bed today. Look at us going down the stairs. I mean, I've been going down the stairs. It's just that my kids aren't here. Okay. That's the end of this. If you have any questions or you're interested in possibly having like an inclusion coach for your school, that is what I do. And I can do it all virtually, which is what I've been doing for a couple of schools right now. One of my contracts has recently ended and they are just doing so many great things. I'm so proud of them. And I mean, really hiring an inclusion consultant or specialist, my goal is that you don't need me anymore. I don't want you to have to keep hiring me. I mean, if you do, cool. Who doesn't love some money? But the goal is that you don't need me anymore. So if you have any questions about that, I will put all the links to get a free consult call with me down below. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. So have a beautiful day. Bye.